What is going on, everybody? AJ Riley here with Eric Vincent for your favorite Detroit sports show, Beyond the Box, where we are talking all things sports, but it's been a crazy beginning of the week for the NFL with the legal tampering, which I hate, first of all. It just brings up flashbacks of the NBA when DeAndre Jordan was going to sign with the Mavericks, and then the Clippers locked him in the house with Blake Griffin. Yeah. And then he ended up not signing with Dallas and ended up signing back with the Clip. Like, why do leagues do? I don't understand this process. Maybe it has to do with like the official start to a season, but like, this is just dumb.
I don't get it either. I love that term, though. I love the term legal tampering.
It's not my term. I read it all day on Twitter, all week on Twitter, because starting on Monday, teams were legally allowed to negotiate with players on other teams and agree to deals with them, though those deals do not become official until Wednesday.
Right.
And so there's been a lot of movement.
Just wow.
There's been a lot of movement, Eric.
How much are we gonna have by Wednesday? We're not gonna make it at this point.
The whole thing's gonna flip upside. It feels like the whole thing is going to flip upside down, and it really kind of got started. And this is where we want to kick off. We're gonna react to this news because there's really nothing left to talk about other than let's react to these signings. Let's react to what has gone on, and then later on in the show, we're gonna play Brad Holmes. Give you our perfect blueprint for the offseason, even our own mock drafts that we built based on what we did in the offseason that we think will set the Lions up to claim that NFC North crown that we talked about on our last show. If you haven't seen that last show, you should go check it out on our YouTube page where you can subscribe and click that bell for all the notifications from Detroit Sports Nation. But Eric, this all got kicked off when Jalen Ramsey was traded to the Miami Dolphins.
The first big move.
And it was the first big move, and it's one of those things that we've talked about very, very frequently, that we wanted to see Jalen Ramsey in a Lions uniform. Mm-hmm. When that news broke, what was your initial reaction?
A little bit of disappointment finding out what he went for. Yeah. Just a third rounder and a tight end. Kind of surprising, but I'm okay with it because the Lions at least tried. Yes. You know, you see that girl in the club that, you know, you've been watching.
Never been to a club.
She might be out of your league.
Never been to a club. I have no idea what you're referencing right now.
You might, for the single people watching, if you were in the club, you see that fine girl or that car, you at least want to just see what it takes. You know, see if you got the gusto to make it happen. And the Lions put their chest out, put on their best gear. They tried to, sway it into making a deal. It's a hard market to go up against. I mean, Miami is no state tax, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no state income tax.
Great weather.
Yeah.
Great weather.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that Jalen Ramsey couldn't really say no to. We saw the back and forth with him and Tyreek Hill. Looks like they're going to have a pretty good practice session with that talent they got. But the Lions tried, so I wasn't upset. It's a big move for them. And, I mean, we're obviously going to talk about what they did later, but the Lions had a backup plan. Mm-hmm. So, considering they had a backup plan and gave it a shot, I was okay with it. I'm not going to be too mad they couldn't get Jalen Ramsey.
When I saw it, I was like, a third rounder and a tight end? I would give up 81 and Brock Wright for that. But then it all comes out like that's where Jalen wanted to go. The Lions were in the mix. If he wanted to come to Detroit, he would have come to Detroit. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? That's fine. We don't need him. Yeah, we do need him because he'd be the best corner. But if you don't want to be here, I don't want you here, right? If you want to be in Miami, then go be in Miami. That's fine. I don't blame the guy. Miami's awesome. My wife and I spent some time there last year, and I read a book on the beach, and it was wonderful. I don't do the water, man. I just sit on the beach.
Oh, wow, you one of those. Okay,
it's not like, listen, when my family came down and visited me in South Carolina after I got done with some training, we went to Myrtle Beach. I got into the ocean with them. But, if I had the opportunity to, sit on the beach and just chill and do nothing and read a book, that's going to be what I'm going to do. It's not what Jalen Ramsey is going to be doing in Miami, but that's what AJ chooses to do in Miami.
That's cool.
You know what I'm saying? I've told you, I've never been to a club. I'm not a nightlife kind of guy. It just
Hence
is.
why that whole thing went over your head. I got you.
I would be in bed by 10 o'clock if I lived in Miami, most likely. Or I'd be up till like 2 a.m. working like I am every night now. But it just is what it is, right? And good for Jalen Ramsey. Good for the Dolphins. We don't have to really worry about him being in the AFC unless we meet in the Super Bowl. And he would have to still be able to keep up with J-Mo, which he might not be able to do at his advanced age. So it's actually good that we're not paying an older guy that much money. It's not a huge. It's been a $17 million cap hit. We didn't want that. Like the initial reaction is like, "Oh my gosh, I cannot believe it." Mm-hmm. But then the Lions were in, and they made a push, and you can't blame them for trying.
I had my eyes go gaga when I saw the news about Matt Patricia potentially landing in Philly, which kept everybody's eyes open about a certain DB maybe leaving, who honestly has been a better cornerback than Jalen Ramsey. Like, Ramsey's been getting beat a lot, especially last season deep. So, yeah, that was another reason I wasn't too upset about it. Darius Slay, who maybe still could be on the move, and at this rate, it could be like for a fourth.
Could be.
He's 32 years old. Like, but it could be for even
but
cheaper.
The cap hit would be massive. That would be the only deterrent for him coming to, I think, Detroit, is that number. And that number is something that, you know, we dealt with a lot today and yesterday, putting together this perfect offseason. Like, that's not something to like sniff at. It's really difficult, especially when you got to project what the draft picks are going to make, and the Lions having about $14 million tied up into them, and then subtract, and it's a lot of math. And I felt like the dude from The Hangover at the blackjack table, where numbers are just swirling around my head. It was interesting, and it got more interesting on Monday.
Yeah.
Because on Monday,
it did.
There were a lot of big names, a lot of names that we mentioned often with the Lions.
Yep.
That did not end up in Detroit. And one name that we did not mention that did end up in Detroit. So the Lions go, they get their guy, Sutton from Pittsburgh. Cam Sutton. Cam Sutton signed him to a 3-year, $33 million deal. Only a $3.28 million cap hit this year, which is very team friendly. And with the voided years and things like that, I was reading it could potentially only be about a 2-year, $22 million deal if it didn't work out. A very friendly contract for a good corner, solid corner. Not anything that's going to like blow your skirt up. Not anything that's going to make you, jump for joy, but you're like, okay. Every one of our corners was like bottom tier, and now we've got like a second tier corner who can play inside, who can play outside. What do you like it? Do you not like it? What are your thoughts on the Cam Sutton deal for the Lions?
I give this an A-. I'm okay with this deal. Again, if you go in to free agency and if let's say Jalen Ramsey was their plan, you have to have a backup idea, and it seems like that's what it was. They acted on Sutton
very fast.
For a player like him, who his coaches, whose scouts have called the smartest player on the field, and has really shown that he's an instinctual player that also was playing behind a great a defensive line as well, playing behind TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, and the stalwart defensive line that they have. Like, that's going to have to stay the focal point, and that could still be the focal point for the Lions as they still continue to address the trenches. He's, if I'm not mistaken, 26 years old, so he's not old. Like, he's not past his prime. He's not peeking towards it, and it didn't cost you as much as like a Jamel Dean who just got paid by the Bucks, which I'm stunned by. I did not think he was going back.
He's 28 years old.
28. Oh, that's still fine.
And he just turned 28.
Okay. Yep. No problem with that. Again, he's not going to be a shutdown number one guy. You can still maybe make a play in the draft or maybe continue in free agency. Maybe. But I'm okay with it. Again, it adds some needed depth for that secondary. It's not a bunch of young guys back there. I like adding him back there for the money that they got him for.
32 receptions on 72 targets in 2022. 44% completion against rate. Tied for the fourth lowest in a season since 2016. with a minimum of 50 targets. That's from ESPN's Next Gen Stats, or the NFL's Next Gen Stats. I'm sorry about that. It's a good signing, and it's a good, I think, message too, right? That okay, we noticed a deficiency, and we signed a solid player at a deficient position. Then they followed that up, and before they did that, let's get this. Isaiah Bugg's coming back. I think that's another great signing. That was another guy that we said, hey, internal guys, those are the ones we need to get. Then they signed Alex Anzalone. And when I saw that, the balloon that was filling with hope and optimism deflated a little bit.
A little or a lot?
I don't want to be like pessimistic here.
Okay.
So it deflated a little bit. But when you're paying Alex Anzalone 3 years, $18.75 million, $6.25 per year, when he was the leading tackler on your team last year, but that was on a historically bad defense. Somebody had to make tackles.
Yes.
I don't understand the move at all, and I seriously question the move. Actually, like I understand that they like him, and there was a tweet that somebody put out that said there's no clear evidence of somebody who is the space between somebody who is disliked by a fan group and adored by coaches. Yeah. And it's like, it's very true, because they love him, and we're all like, what in the world are we doing here?
Yes, get out of here. Yes.
To be your inside linebacker, right? Like, with Bobby Wagner still out there, with Levante David still out there. I understand they're a little bit older, but they're still better.
Yes, they're game breakers. They're versatile. Like, he came on strong in the second half of the season. He was not good as things were struggling. Like, he was not one of the like promising pieces of the defense. Like, he was just kind of serviceable at getting by. And you don't re-sign serviceable to 3 years, 18 mil. Like,
no.
I'm not surprised that they brought him back. I am surprised with the money, and I'm very surprised by 3 years. I did not expect that at all. I mean, like that caught me most.
We're talking about a guy that had a market value of like $3.5 million. And he doubled that.
Yep.
Like, I get liking a guy. I get that he was a captain. I get that there's leadership intangibles and all that included, but I know that we are very trusting of Brad Holmes. And I know that he has a plan. But if this is our inside linebacker for the next 3 years, this defense is still going to struggle.
Yes.
Because he's not fast enough to get out on the edges to cover running backs. He can play the run okay. He's terrible in coverage against tight ends. Like, what are we doing?
This was not it. He's not a blitzer. He's not a game record like that. He's just serviceable.
That's a great word for it.
Just serviceable. You don't pay that kind of, the terms for a serviceable player. He's like, we talk about the fan reception of him. Like, if you re-sign him for the fans, like, oh, he's, loved and beloved in Ford Field. It's not even that. Like, again, must be something different amongst the locker room reception of him, because I don't see it. He makes a couple good plays. They replayed a lot on Twitter, the play he made against Green Bay on that 4th down end around in the first half. Outside of that, he didn't have a whole lot of other big plays in the season. So I can't get super excited about this move. I just can't.
I think, and I'm starting to get the feeling that people are watching Beyond the Box. And they're listening to Beyond the Box. Because last week we said the Lions are the NFC favorites. Hands down. Because their trajectory is the best. Well, Tremaine Edmonds, my guy.
Yeah, your boy.
He's now a Chicago Bear.
Yep.
TJ Edwards, now a Chicago Bear. Marcus Davenport from New Orleans, now a Minnesota Viking.
DJ
Moore, yeah. The Bears made that huge trade of the number 1 pick to Carolina to move back to 9.
Oh, that was nuts.
Got a pretty doggone good haul for that, and DJ Moore on a very team-friendly contract. Now,
yes,
questions still surround Justin Fields, and can he actually get the ball to him?
No,
I don't think so.
Okay. Nope.
But I'm sitting here looking at, and listen, I'm not sitting here saying, and I've told you before, we don't need a huge splash in free agency. We just don't need a huge splash. I get that. And Sutton was a nice piece. But sitting back, initial reaction, gut reaction, I'm sitting here like, maybe we might have created a monster by projecting this so doggone early that they're going to win. And I still think the Lions have the best trajectory out of any of the teams.
Yeah.
But I would like to see something else happen.
I think they gotta veer away from their normal path. Like you said, Brad Holmes always has a plan. He's been sticking with this plan for a minute. If it's any time to get aggressive and start making these splash moves, like you said, they might not need one. If this is the set and how the NFC North is moving up now, at least for the Bears, you got to get something to tip the balance. I wouldn't have paid what Tremaine Edwards got.
I wanted to address that next, but
yeah, let's do that.
So Tremaine Edmonds is going to the Bears.
Edmonds.
Tremaine Edmonds is going to the Bears for 4 years. I think it's like $75 million with 50 guaranteed. It's 18 average annual salary or average value.
That's a lot. Yep.
And when the news first broke and I saw Tremaine Edmonds to the Bears, I about wept. And then I saw that number and I said, okay. I feel much better about the fact that we didn't sign him for that much. I was good in the 11 to 15 million per year range. I would have been fine with that. 18's pushing it a little bit, and I hate that we have to play against him. I really do. But they signed all these linebackers to cover tight ends, and we have invested pocket lint into tight ends, which is fine.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that. No big deal, right? We had exclusive right free agents that we signed. Shane Zylstra, Brock Wright, they're going to be back with the team on league minimum salaries. Benito Jones is also going to be back, league minimum salary. And Daly, the long snapper, is also going to be back on a league minimum salary. They did also sign the Lions' Craig Reynolds back. So that running back room does have two people in it right now, DeAndre Swift and Craig Reynolds. Even though he was an exclusive rights free agent, they signed him to more than what the league minimum is, even though I don't know as of right now what that number is specifically. If free agency ended today, are they on the right path?
They're on the right path, but it's still a lot of work that they now have to rely on for free agency or for the draft. Because, like, let's say they re-signed 3 of their own and then brought back 1 on a bigger deal. I'm happy with it because, again, I like Sutton. I think he fills a need. I think he's a boost in terms of what that secondary needs, which is intelligence and experience. He's a good player, but that can't be it. Like, it has to be more than that. You got to get either aggressive in the draft to me. Like, you got to do something to tip. Like, I've seen a lot of mocks where, we'll talk a little bit more about the draft, but I've seen mocks where Jalen Carter is falling and then he lands with the Lions. Like, something like that has to tip the favor for the Lions. So, are they on the right path? Yes, but I still think there's a lot more work to do, and I think they got to get a little more comfortable with steering away from what's worked up to this point. Get aggressive. Like, do something that's going to shake it up in an area of need. And, I hope that that's the case by the end of this week.
I hope it is too. I just am like, I understand being consistent, and I understand working a plan, and I understand the whole Joel Embiidism of trusting the process. I'm here for it, right? And building through the draft. Like, the best way to build a team is through the draft. But I was also listening to local radio, and they were talking about, like, if you signed Sutton, does that take you out of the cornerback market in the draft? Or do you add another high-level cornerback to that cornerback room and build that way? Because Sutton could only be here for 2, max 3 years.
Right.
So there's still a lot of pieces to the puzzle that need to get put together. Jamal Williams, still a free agent. DJ Chark's still a free agent, which I know we're going to talk about that. John Kaminsky's still a free agent. It's, I don't know. I don't know how this affects the draft strategy. Like, I'll tell you when we get to that segment, though. I did one mock where I tried trading up, and it became disastrous.
Oh, how high up did you try?
The highest I could get was to number 2 with the Texans. The Panthers would not take any deal that I took, and I ended up getting. I told you I would only trade up and take Will Anderson, and I ended up getting Will Anderson at 2. Okay. And I still was able to retain 18 and got Bijan at 18. But everything after that was like a total disaster. And it was just not great.
Okay, let's peel into that a little bit. How much did you have to give up? Because I have a question that I want to get into.
Well, in order here, I've got it right here. Let me get to it. Okay. So
I have.
Well, no, actually, I did have it right here.
No. Yeah, because I've seen philosophies and ideas of how aggressive the Lions need to be, and I just have my own question about it, how this needs to be addressed. So I'm curious of what it
This was the lowest grade in a draft that I had in the mocks that I did, and it was a B+.
Okay, that's good.
Right. To get up to number 2, I had to give up 6, 18, 81, and a third round in 2024, and I got back number 2, a third round this year, so I moved up in the third round as well, and I got into the 4th round, and I picked up an extra number 6, a 6th round pick.
Okay.
So I traded 4 draft picks, but PFF graded it as a D+. But so I traded, and I got Will Anderson at 2, but since I didn't have 18 anymore, I went and traded back up into the 1st round, getting rid of that 3rd that I got from the Texans, the 2nd that I got from our 2nd round, the 4th round that I got from the Texans, a 4th and a 5th to get back up into the 1st round, and took Bijan at 19. And it was just a disaster after that. Like, I would never do that again.
I got killed for trying to get Bijan as well, like the 1st, and they get a nice grade for that.
It was a D at 19. Bijan at 19 was a D according to their grade. Yeah. Everything else in that draft, though, A- for Will Anderson, A+, B, A+, A+, and it ended up as a B+ overall grade. So I think if you're going to get aggressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to cost. I mean, we know it's going to cost.
So, okay, and I don't want to turn this into this conversation, but just stay with me. We have to,
yeah.
With so much pushback on Lamar Jackson costing the future of this team, right? It's going to cost too much money. You're going to have to give up your capital and all these picks. I'm listening to 97 Won the Ticket. I've seen conversations on social media. I even put up a poll on my Twitter at I am Eric Vincent. I put up the idea, would you be okay with the Lions trading up for Jalen Carter or Will Anderson? You're going to have to get in the top 3, top 5, wherever. It's going to take a lot of aggressive moving. Maybe not. But for Will Anderson, more Anderson, likely for than not. So if you can get aggressive for that, how aggressive is this team allowed to be? Because for me, I've been balls to the wall this whole time. I think, you can't, I'm tired of people saying, oh, let's just build slow and good. No, if you want to start winning, you have to start getting aggressive now. So I guess I'm trying to figure how aggressive is too aggressive for now if people are scared of tanking the future for the team, but you also want to start winning right away. So which one's it going to be? You see what I'm saying? I feel like people are kind of speaking out of both sides of their mouth in that discussion a little bit.
So here's my take on the whole thing.
Okay.
If you're building a house, you have to lay the foundation first. If you don't lay the foundation first, you're going to have a wobbly structure.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing that you want to do with this Lions franchise is build a house of cards where if one thing misses, the whole thing comes crumbling down. Which is why giving up so much capital for Lamar is a risky proposition.
It'll be risky for a rookie as well, too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. However, that's why we talked about this a few shows back. With me and draft capital, it's upping your odds of hitting, because not every draft pick is going to hit.
Of course not.
And the more players that you can have on that 4-year potentially 5-year if they're a first rounder with the 5th-year option rookie contract, the better chances you have of actually building something that is sustainable. So if last year was the foundation, when you lay the foundation, you don't then put the roof on top of it and cap it off. You got to do what? You got to build the walls. You got to put the support beam in. You got to get, the load-bearing walls. All those different types of things have to be in place before you can put the cap on it. Are the Lions at a place where they can put a cap on it right now? No, they're not. Which is partially my biggest gripe with the whole Jameson Williams trade up last year. That was kind of like a luxury pick for a team that didn't have the luxury to pick there. Where there were other building pieces,
We disagree.
I understand that we disagree there, but there's more foundational pieces than a speedy wide receiver that just takes the top off the defense. Yes, he's dynamic. Yes, with the ball in his hands, he can make plays. He's got to get the ball in his hands, first of all. So when we ask the question, how aggressive should they get? If you trade back up into the first round to take Bijan Robinson, that's too aggressive in my mind.
Because running back's not a foundational piece. Right. I'm with you on that one.
But how are you with me on that one and not with me on the Jameson Williams one? Because it's the same concept.
Because wide receiver was a need. They needed wide receiver help at that point.
I understand, but they need running back. They have 2 running backs. That's what you see. Like they literally have 2 running backs on the roster right now. Jamar Jefferson, he's a free agent. Justin Jackson, he's a free agent. Jamal Williams, he's a free agent. They have 2 running backs in that room right now.
Fine, but contrary to what... Okay, so let's go back to the first year Goff was here. The wide receiver group underperformed. Sure. Would you say the running back group underperformed last season? Because I would not.
The running back?
They were arguably the most... Yeah, I will argue they were the most important piece of that team last year. So because of that...
I only think that you say that because Jamal had such a good season pounding the ball in from the goal line.
Yeah, that was a need for this team.
But DeAndre Swift was a huge letdown offensively last year.
Sure, but when Jamal plays as well as he did, it kind of, makes up for that.
Jamal's also not on this team right now. And there's a potential that he may not be on this team. There's a very real possibility that he ends up in Carolina with Deuce Staley.
Absolutely. But also where me and you disagree is you believe that you think receivers are less valuable than running backs. I don't agree with that. I think running backs are the least valuable position on an offense. And you can absolutely replace what Jamal did to an extent with a Bijan Robinson or anybody else that you find late. We'll talk about our drafts later with running back activity. And I just feel like you can plug that a little bit easier where receiver, you kind of need guys, or you can be aggressive enough to go get a guy like J-Mo who is hurt but has upside to be a very explosive player on the team.
But at the same time, when we talk about least valuable, to me, they're both. They're the 2 least valuable, both of them together. Whichever way you want to order them. To me, if you're building, and I'm going to keep this house analogy up because apparently I really like it.
Yeah, let's talk about this house.
But if you're building this house, right, wide receivers and running backs are kind of like the decor that you hang on the wall. They're not the wall. They're the window dressing. And if you don't like this one, we found Amon-Ra in the 5th round, right? Right. So there's players like that can be had with less draft capital. When you have foundational pieces that can be had earlier in the draft, which is important. So last year, we know that this was a historically bad defense, and everybody knew that our need was defense, but yet we traded up to take a receiver that could not play until after Thanksgiving. That, to me, is window dressing. That's not a foundational piece.
So would you consider Amon-Ra a foundational piece at this point?
Now?
Even as a 4th rounder?
Well, yes, now. Which makes drafting another wide receiver expendable in a lot of ways. Yes, you need more than one wide receiver. I'm with you. But there's pieces And when you're talking about building a foundation, your line has to be good. Okay, check. We got that, right?
Which it is. It is.
You have to have a quarterback that at least protects the football. Okay, Jared Goff's actually really good at that. So check there, right? There's your foundation on offense. Now do you have a running back that can carry the load, or at least two running backs that can run through the holes at your offensive line? Yes, you do. Now do you have wide receivers that can get open? That's kind of how I would build my offense. Because it all goes back to your philosophy, right? If you are a team, if you took like an air raid offense, yeah, you need receivers and you need good receivers. But if you are like a 60-40 run offense, then your running backs are more valuable than your wide receivers.
You also have an offense that's predicated on Jared Goff constantly trying to do play action.
Right,
so
which makes your running backs more valuable than your wide receivers. Because if there's no threat back there with the play action, the action's null and void. But this team is best when it is using play action. Because they're built on a run concept and scheme.
But you also have to, like you talked about, I'll throw a scenario back at you. It's like a Broadway play. You have all your foundation pieces to start off. The offensive line does their job to set the tone of the play. The quarterback does his job to set the tone of the play. You have to cap it off with a great ending to that play. You can't have that if your receivers are not getting open, not catching the ball.
That's why it's all complimentary. I'm with you. We're kind of saying the same thing, but in just different ways, right? Like, it all takes a team effort, and it's all how you build. If you had Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, and Steph Diggs as your 1, 2, and 3, throw Amon-Ra in there as your slot wide receiver, but you had the Los Angeles Rams offensive line last year, it doesn't matter.
You're cooked.
You know what I'm saying?
But that's not where the Lions are.
So
to me, with that being said, and with the foundation defensive pieces flourishing better than we expected, I think that gives them the ability to be a little bit more aggressive. What do you mean, who?
Who on defense right now are you hanging your hat on other than like Aiden and Rodrigo and James Houston?
Kirby Joseph?
Okay, Joseph was good. Yep. That's another one. That's 4 players out of 7, though. Or 4 out of 11.
McNeil are important.
Huh?
Buggs and McNeil are important.
They are important.
Jerry Jacob is a rotational guy that showed a lot of upside, I think. Like, those players matter. So, like, to me, like, again, I don't think the Lions are so far away in terms of, we gotta have these picks stashed away and make sure that, like, no, you don't. You're only a few pieces away. If you establish an elite defensive line, you don't need an unbelievably flawless back 7 and linebacker. No, you're I don't. If you have a solid D line,
solid front 7.
Right, so if you have that,
linebacker,
you are allowed to be a little more aggressive.
I'm 100% with you.
I'm sorry, front 4. Let me say front 4.
I would take it to the linebackers.
Okay.
You have to take it to the linebackers. Your defensive line and your linebackers have got to all be so impactful to an extent that it makes your secondary better. Right, I heard somebody say recently, like, you don't know any of the secondary names from the San Francisco 49ers. Why? Because they're big uglies up front get the job done. And that's kind of what you want to build here. Yes. You know what I'm saying?
Pay the big uglies, yes.
So you want to establish that defensive line. That's why I think trading up for a Bijan Robinson is a mistake when you really don't have a very good defensive interior. When Alex Anzalone, going back to him, is your inside linebacker right now. There's pieces that need to be drafted.
Would you say that interior is ascending, though?
No. I would say the edge players are ascending. Yeah, but
they're not, like, lost. Like, I feel like a lot of those pieces did well. Yes. And the D tackles, too. I think Buggs and McNeil did a good job last season.
Buggs plays defensive end. He's listed as a defensive end.
I thought he was a tackle.
No.
So regardless, it's a trenches position. Right?
Yes and no. If your defensive tackles are not effective enough, then it works itself out. then your defensive ends are not going to be effective enough. Then your linebackers are not going to be effective enough. Ali McNeil, he did a great job. Josh Pascal can probably do a good job, but you've got to solidify that down lineman right over the center. That's got to be the dude. You saw the Eagles do it. They just got rid of, was it Musgrove? They let him go sign with the 49ers because they drafted Jalen Davis last year. They let TJ Edwards walk because they had Nakobe Dean waiting in the wing. Like, that's how you build. And they didn't waste draft capital on going up and getting a wide receiver. Now, arguably, they probably had flashbacks from drafting Jalen Reagor. But at the same time,
that was it.
There's a way that you have to build. And right now, the Lions, I don't think that they have the ability to get too aggressive in forfeiting draft capital. If it's to go up and get somebody like a Will Anderson, whose odds of hitting are much higher than many draft picks, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
He's probably the best, if not the second best, defensive prospect in this draft. We know that. But the other draft prospect has a lot of question marks around him, and whether or not I saw a report today that Schefter's saying that Jalen Carter could be there at 9 for the Bears to draft.
That's just crazy.
Is it though?
I would be stunned. Yes.
Is it though? It may not be.
Yes. Yes, it
because
is.
If people think that he has character issues and he misled authorities and all this stuff that was said, and I'm not saying that's all alleged. It's not anything that's true.
Right,
He's refuted that stuff, and I hope that he comes out clean because I hate seeing kids, one mistake costing them a lot in the future.
Right.
But I think that's a possibility. Now, I personally don't think he would ever make it past the Lions at 6.
Me neither.
I don't, but if he doesn't fit the Campbell and Holmes mold, and if he doesn't have that mentality, right? Wasn't it Dan Campbell that said they interviewed 30 players and 4 of them had the it factor?
The it factor.
You know what I'm saying? If he's not one of those 4, they're not taking him at 6. You know what I mean?
I don't think that's a question. I get it, but I don't think... To me, I feel like the Lions are like one of those teams that, like, you see a lot of groupthink in terms of how owners, we're seeing it with Lamar Jackson currently. Like, you can't tell me otherwise. I believe owners are colluding to not sign him because they don't want to pay guaranteed money. Like, that's what I believe. I don't think the Lions would fall in that kind of conversation with a guy like Jalen Carter, where historically they've taken chances on guys before. And I don't think they're scared of, like, again, we don't know the full details of what's happened. All we know is what we know. And I don't think it's enough to push him back that far to where he would be available at a pick 9. I just couldn't see that. I could not see that.
I hope it doesn't happen, because the last thing I want to see is him in Chicago with Tremaine Edmonds behind him, because I hate that. Oh, that's the worst case scenario, actually. I don't know.
Which is why I was so surprised about the trade down anyway, because if you wanted to trade down,
did you see what they got?
They got a lot, but if you still prioritized like having your trenches set, he could have been a guy.
No, I think they had a plan. I mean,
happened.
They just went. They had $95 million in cap space. They had a plan, and with all that draft capital, who's to say they can't use that to trade up to 5?
They still,
you know what I mean? Like that's
very
much within the realm of possibility. So I don't know. The question is, are the Lions on the right track? And to move to our final segment of the night, okay? We put the Lions on the right track. Eric and I, we decided, you know what? Let's don the Brad Holmes villain sweatshirt. Let's throw on the grit hat for a second.
You should have had it on today.
I should have. You're right. But let's go ahead and let's decide what's the perfect offseason blueprint for the Detroit Lions, knowing what we know. They've signed Cam Sutton. They've signed Alex Anzalone. So what moves are we making? Are we cutting people? Are we signing free agents? We got to keep $14 million in cap space for the draft picks as they're slotted right now, with no draft picks being moved. So, Eric, are you making any cuts?
I'm making some cuts.
Who are you cutting?
I think there are some pieces that they could afford to let go. I'm going to just start with with two names right now that I believe they need to get rid of. Charles Harris will be one of those names. There was a lot of upside and promise for him. Had a problem staying healthy. He's 28 years old, and you're looking to upgrade. With rookies at this point, I would let him go. Big V also, I would let go. His $12 million cap hit. Taking him out would save you some good money. And again, that's another position in need that they could potentially looking at to address in the draft. There are some positions later in the middle rounds that they could go after, and I think it would be an easy plug for what they need next to their tackles and their center. I would love to see them make that move. To me, those are the two guys I would start. I would maybe think about restructuring. Actually, no, I'll leave Goff's deal alone. Maybe talk to Taylor Decker about restructuring his deal. But as of right now, those are the two cuts that I would make right now.
If you restructure Goff's deal, he's your quarterback for the next 5 years.
That's why I don't want to.
Okay. But we're not having that conversation tonight.
We're not.
Okay, so
leave us alone, Goff.
I'm cutting those two guys as well, but I'm also adding Romeo Okwara to it. Because if we add those three guys together, you would save $6.5 million by releasing Hal Vaitai, $7.5 million by releasing Romeo Okwara, and $4 million by releasing Charles Harris, which then leaves us with a pool of money of about $31 million. Now, subtract 14 from that, you got $17 million left to spend, and that's after the cap hits have been put in from Sutton and Anzalone, roughly. So you really only have, Eric, about $3 million left to sign, left to spend. How are you making that work?
I don't think they have a lot of moves available.
I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. We have 31 million. We took 14 off. You have 17 million.
Right,
I was a history teacher for a reason.
That's okay.
We have 17 million to spend. How are you spending that 17 million, Eric?
Yeah, I don't think they have a whole lot of moves left that they can make. Again, I thought the big point of emphasis was going to be to re-sign a lot of their guys and maybe splash on one, which is kind of what they're doing now. So I like that they got Bugs back. I don't love Anzalone. At this point, I would make sure DJ Shark comes back.
Yep.
We've gone back and forth with this. Yep. We're in agreement here? Oh, sound the bells and the whistles. What? We agree on this one?
Yeah, he's on my list.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think it has to happen, man. I don't see them drafting a receiver in the draft.
Because the only receivers really worth taking are generally going to be before the third round. You could probably sneak one out in the fifth round, maybe.
Right.
I didn't see anybody worth
Ronnie
taking.
Bell, maybe the sixth. Yeah.
For me, I'm to the point now after seeing what all's gone down Monday and then the rest of the way, like, let's just run it back and then add through the draft. For me,
that's what it looks like.
Try to get like a $2 million cap hit on Jamal Williams, sign him for more money, but signing bonus, performance incentives, whatever the case is. Sign John Kaminsky back. I had Tremaine Edmonds on my list, and then he signed with the Bears, and I was upset about that. But so Tremaine Edmonds, he's gone. That's not even an option. So with him gone, it's in-house signings: Jamal Williams, John Kaminsky, and DJ Chark.
I don't know why I have some feeling that Jamal Williams is not going to be back.
I'm starting to.
For some reason, don't think he's going to come back.
The fact that it had not happened yet. Is making me.
You agreed to Anzalone's deal before him?
Yeah.
That rubbed me the wrong way. And I still think you can get Shark for the cheap.
And you bring up an interesting point. Which one's more integral to their success, Alex Anzalone or Jamal Williams?
Gosh, I mean, at this rate, it's sadly, this is gonna sound crazy, but I kind of think it's Anzalone.
That's why they signed him first.
I think,
though I think Jamal's better for the locker room, the fans, all of that. I mean, he's the favorite athlete of Detroit sports right now. So,
yeah, but clearly it's something about Thor that they just had to get back. Though that long blonde hair of his, he's a good player. Again, he showed some stride, but
not worth that money.
He got to perform like
not worth that money.
Yeah, no, he's got to perform like one of the better linebackers in his division this coming season. Like, we have to see that.
No, absolutely have to see that. I mean, at a certain point, there's got to be production to match the dollar amount, or else it's a waste. And I feel like I hate to be so negative on him because I want him to be successful, and he was our best, tackler last year, but.
Hey, there was a lot of love for him on social media, so talk to us in the comments if you guys think
if we're missing something. But I mean, I saw him live against the Seahawks, and they ran that doggone tight end bench route a million times, and he didn't cover it once except for in the fourth quarter. So I don't know. So if they make those signings, so if they sign Sutton, they sign Jamal, they signed Anzalone, Bugs, they bring back Chark, maybe they bring back Kaminsky. Is that a good enough free agency for you?
Yeah, it's good enough. Again, I'm a side eye we're not gonna kill Anzalone all episode, but yeah, I'm gonna keep side eyeing it until it works out. But for me, it's good enough. Again, I did think they needed to make a splash. Doesn't look like it's gonna happen, but I do like the pieces that they addressed. They didn't get pieces that they didn't need. They didn't, just fall for emotion. They addressed pieces that they needed. So I'm okay with it, and I do have a lot more trust in Brad Holmes in terms of the draft than free agency. I do too, anyway.
100%.
So, I mean, yeah, I'll live with it. I'll live with this for now. They didn't overspend on somebody. I'd much rather you. Well,
yes, they did. They overspent on Anzalone.
I agree, but like if they would have got for Daron Payne's money, somebody, or like overspent on somebody else like that, Tremaine Edmonds, then we have an issue. But for this, with a successful draft, I'll be okay with it.
I still feel like it would be undone. Like it would be incomplete.
Okay. What do they need to do then? What would they have needed to do then? Just strictly the Anzalone, or is it something else?
It's not Anzalone. It's, for me, like, I brought up Chris Wormley, right? Last, like somebody like that. Somebody that's going to cost you like second, third tier, but is a veteran guy that can plug the middle of a defensive line that you can add a Jalen Carter to, Will Anderson to, right? Like, creating that type of depth, because I don't know, something just feels very underwhelming right now.
Yeah, that's the word.
I think that's something just feels really underwhelming, and it could all change, right? By the time free agency is over, it could all change, and we could be popping bottles like it's nobody's business. But I also get hesitant to, again, make too big of a splash, right? I don't want to overpay. I'm glad they didn't overpay for Edmonds. I'm glad that they didn't acquire the Jalen Ramsey cap hit. So that's smart, because that gives them more flexibility in the draft. Could they trade somebody, gather more draft picks, and then you've got an even younger base of a foundation that you're laying? It's all possible. So we've signed our free agents. We've cut our guys. Vaitai, Okora, Charles Harris, we kind of agreed they're gone. We've signed our in-house guys back, which will work out. Not adding any other outside talent, which then brings us to late April and the draft. And both of us, last week we conducted our mock draft live for everybody. We kind of voted on them together, and you guys could see kind of a process play out. And then as we were preparing for this show, we decided, hey, let's do it, the whole thing. Let's cut our guys, let's sign our guys, let's draft our guys. Who'd you take at 6? We'll just go pick by pick for both of us.
At number 6, the draft gods bless me. Jalen Carter fell to 6, and I was so happy that was the case. I like the quarters that have the upside around 6, but I don't want to draft one that high. If you can get blessed to draft Jalen Carter at 6, don't fool yourself. Don't waste the whole 10 minutes thinking about it. Draft that man and be done. I think that's the easy call. Jalen Carter is the best pick in that moment, so I got him at 6.
Which is interesting, because I also had Jalen Carter fall to 6, and it was a no-brainer. So that gives me a little bit of caution that like people think that he's starting to fall. But again, I don't believe that he will make it past the Lions at 6. I strongly believe that,
No.
actually. I think all the legal
think you
stuff,
believe it.
from what I've read and what I've seen, is going to get worked out, hopefully, for his sake and for everybody's sake. But if he's there at 6, you take him.
I agree.
Did your draft include any trades? I had offers, but I was like, I'm not doing this. I want to just go straight picks that the Lions have. So we both agreed on that. Okay.
Yeah, I got some good offers,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to make it too murky, so I just kept it with what the order was.
So who'd you take at 18 then?
I beefed up the trenches even more. Nolan Smith, come on
freak
down from
athlete.
Georgia.
Oh, the combine hero.
Unbelievable freak athlete. I like James Houston, but I don't know if I like him as a guy
He's
to
not an
play for
everyday
3
guy.
snaps. He's not an everyday guy, and you can't have too many edge rushers. So I'm okay with Nolan Smith. I think he has a lot of upside in his position, and I think you make a freakishly scary defensive line for the next 5-10 years. Nolan Smith to me was an easy pick. Got a B- for it.
21 on there.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe he's not just a combine hero. He only played 8
What,
games
Nolan
this
Smith?
year, though.
Nolan Smith?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then if anything, that's right up Brad Holmes' alley then. Yo, he's been hurt. Got to stash him for a minute? Okay, let's get him. Hey, I'm with you, Brad. We on the same
He's
page,
an
my
edge
boy.
player, played outside the tackle. He played over the tackle twice this last season. 12 hurries, 5 hits, 2 sacks, 69 run defense snaps, 102 pass rush snaps. He graded out as an 83 from PFF, so it's not a bad pick. Freak athlete, not a bad thing. Again, I'm always leery of combine heroes, but hey, I'm with you.
Okay.
But then I took a combine hero because I got Kalisha Cansey at 18,
Ooh.
which, if you notice,
So back to back, tackles, right?
back-to-back defensive interior tackles. I told you, build those two.
Wow.
If I'm nothing, if
Okay.
not consistent, Eric. I told you, you build that, and then that helps
I don't
affect
hate it.
everything else.
I don't hate
else.
that. That's scary. I'm with
That'd be
that.
okay, right?
Yeah.
You had Aleem
What was
Aleem McNeil, and Josh Pascal. Those 4 rotating in there in the defensive interior, and then you got Hutch and Houston and Bugs. It could
Scary
work
hours.
out. Who'd you get in the second round at pick 48?
Hold on.
Wait.
Wait, what grade did you get for that?
An A.
Oh, you got an A for it? Okay, that's good. I like that. Appreciate it.
I have
BFF.
one grade below an A on this one, and
I
I
have-
disagree
okay, I
with it
gotta-
strongly.
We'll get into that.
It's my next pick. It's pick 48.
Oh, okay. Okay, man. For me, I got a B on this one, and it's the other side of the trenches. I got Steve Avila from
Well,
TCU.
there's your answer, Eric. I got a B because I had Steve Avila at pick 48 too. It's the
Yes,
only
there
B
you
that
go.
I got on this draft, and I strongly disagree with it. We addressed the need. We got a good upside player with that grades out well. This is a good pick at 48. I don't know what PFF's smoking, but it ain't something good.
Yeah. I was offended by that too.
Very
I thought
offended.
I was gonna get a little better with that one. Like, really?
What'd you get in our
Okay,
second
fine.
round pick 55?
Pick 55, I went after another position in need. Kind of sticking with that as of right now, but it's still the best position available, or player available for the spot. Linebacker Diane Henley for Washington State got an A+ for this.
Are you in my brain?
You got, bro? Come on, I know you did.
I did.
That's crazy.
At pick 55, I got Diane Henley from Washington State, linebacker.
Okay, and I got a nice A+ for
Hey
it.
man, great minds think alike.
High
Great,
five to us. Let's go.
great minds think alike. What did you take in the third round?
Yes.
Our fifth pick in the top 81, kind of like rounding out that sweet spot of draft capital. What did you take at 81?
I got another cornerback addressed for this offseason. I got Garrett Williams out of Syracuse. I think I don't think they're set in terms of their secondary. I do think they need another piece, whether it's trading for somebody or drafting somebody. They need one more, if not maybe 2 more corners, depending on what they do with Okuda, because I have no idea what they're going to do. But I think Williams has good promise. I think he would be a good pick in the third round right there. I
went a different direction this time.
Okay.
I did have Williams. He was there, and I was like, do I want to go corner? Do I not want to go corner? And then I was like, no, you can really never have too many offensive linemen, especially good offensive linemen. So I took the center from Ohio State, Luke Weipler.
Okay.
Because I figured he can either play there and move Ragnow to guard, or he can play guard and leave Ragnow at center, which I think would be ideal. But then that gives you Jonah Jackson, Weipler, Steve Avila. You don't need to re-sign Evan Brown. You've already cut Hal Valitai.
No.
So
he's got to go.
I wanted to go offensive line there.
Brown had way too many penalties for me last year. Yeah,
which is really interesting because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The Lions have 8 picks, and 3 of them I used on offense, by the way. Or no, 5 of them.
Really?
5 of them I used on offense.
5 of them used on offense?
Yeah. Now that I'm looking at this, which I'm like, you gotta go defense. But I feel like with what I got in defense at the top of the draft, I could then go. That afforded me the opportunity to kind of lay back. So what'd you get in round 5 at 153?
Okay, I'm not too bad at that. Again, I don't think Jamal Williams is coming back, so I addressed the running back position. Dwayne McBride, UAB.
Me too.
No, my gosh, come on.
But that's after I said that Jamal Williams was coming back. So now you have a 4-headed monster in your running back room. You got Swift, you got Reynolds, you got Jamal, and you got McBride. I liked the way he graded out. They said he was quick. He doesn't have the breakaway speed, but I mean, averaged like 7.2 yards in his career per carry. He's 215 pounds and runs a lot heavier than that, is what I understood. So I think that's
because you need you need a running back to help grind out time of possession. It helps to have guys like that on your team. In certain situations, that is correct.
Yeah. All right, go ahead. Okay. 182, round 6.
My final A+. I got a few A+. This is my final one. Edge rusher Yasir Abdullah from Louisville. Okay. I don't think you could have too many edge rushers, and I think he has a lot of upside as well. He can find a fill-in for Okwara, kind of play that James Houston role where, coming on third down, just put your head down, get to the quarterback. I think he's a good guy to make that happen, so I was happy with that.
My first 6th-round pick I went tight end, Davis Allen from Clemson, which would then give us 4 tight ends in the tight end room. 2 that are, they're all young tight ends that just kind of give depth. I liked him in his pass catching ability, his blocking ability that I saw on PFF. So I took him at 6, and then we have to round out the draft with our final pick 193. What did you take?
This is my worst grade, but I'm okay with it. I'm fine with this. It's a tight end, Will Mallory from Miami. I think they need another guy. Goff plays pretty good with tight ends. Like, he's a pretty good rapport with tight ends, and I think you need one more to kind of fill in that offense. I think he could be helpful. I don't plan on to see them bring this Mitchell. You said Zylstra and
Brock Wright.
I forgot Brock Wright. They were
They were given a contract.
Tender, right? Okay, good. So I don't know. I don't think they're finished at that point. I think they need one more, and I think Mallory could be that guy.
So for the final pick of my draft, I went quarterback. And I did not take Clayton Tune.
Who did you pick?
Aiden O'Connell from Purdue.
I knew it. Yep. Okay.
I was deciding between him and Tune, and then I remembered watching him sling it around against Michigan. He throws a pretty decent ball. I don't mind him. I don't think he would ever be a starter or anything like that, but at least it adds depth to the quarterback room, which I think is nice. I got an A+ for it. So I addressed offense, 5 offensive players, 3 defensive players, but the defensive players that I got, I feel like really kind of stood out. Now, obviously, I didn't address the cornerback situation at all, which maybe if I had to pick to do over, I'd get the kid out of USC in the 6th round. I think it's McBride. Not McBride. I don't know. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but
I'll do some recon.
He was always he always graded out pretty well too, but I feel like if you address that front 7, that makes your secondary less susceptible. So we'll put both of our mock drafts up, and we want you guys to kind of grade them for us. Who do you think is better, and which one do you think sets up the Lions better for the 2023 season? But that's a good plan, right? That's our blueprint. These are the guys that you need to cut. Vaitai, Romeo Okwara, Charles Harris. The guys you need to sign, they're all in-house. Jamal Williams, DJ Chark, John Kaminsky. Add those to the fold back. You already got Bugs. You already got Anzalone. You got Cam Sutton. And then here's who we think you should draft. If Jalen Carter's there at 6, you do not pass on Jalen Carter.
You do not.
You don't. You don't.
Not.
You can't go wrong with either of our number 18 picks, Nolan Smith or Koji Akansi, even though I would prefer Kansi because of the defensive interior aspect, and we have a ton of edges right now. We both said Steve Avila to address that guard, and then Diane Henley at linebacker. Like, if those are your first 4 picks in this draft, that's already shaping up to be a pretty decent draft. So let us know what you think about that in the comments. If you're on YouTube, make sure that you have liked and subscribed to DSN. Also, make sure that you pound that like bell or that like button on this video. Drop some comments, share it around so that everybody else can enjoy your favorite Detroit sports show, which is Beyond the Box. I'm AJ Riley. He's Eric Vincent. We will be back with you at the end of the week to talk more football and whatever else floats our fancy. We'll see you then.